Hello everybody. So today we're going to be talking about volume. So I know you guys have talked about volume before in 7th grade math. The volumes, and you did like cubes and like prisms and stuff like that. We're going to do conical shapes. So that basically means there's something circular involved in each of these shapes this year. There's 4 things we're going to talk about. First thing we're going to talk about is just an area, though, because since these are all circular, we have to, most of these involve the area of a circle in some form or another. Again, volume is the space that fills up a 3-dimensional shape. Area is the space that fills up a 2-dimensional shape, right? So if it's a flat shape like a circle or a square, that would be an area. If it's a, 3-dimensional things like, standing up and stuff like that, like a cylinder or a cone or a sphere, which are, surprise, surprise, the shapes we're going to be talking about today. Those are going to have volume for the space that fills them up. Okay. So again, just to kind of, and you guys should have learned this already, but the area of a circle, and you're going to have a note page that goes over this. Do we need the light on here? Let me see. Is that better? It feels like it's about the same. Okay. So that you're going to have a note page that has all the formulas and stuff on it. But for this video, I'm just going to have some little post-it notes for each one. But the formula for the area of a circle is area is equal to pi r squared. And r means radius. Okay? So the radius of a circle is half the diameter. So 1/2 the radius is equal to the diameter. Okay, so diameter is the line that goes from end to end that goes to the center. So if you just have a single line coming from the center to the end, that's just half of that, right? This is a radius. Okay, so this is what a radius looks like. This is what a diameter looks like. Notice that the formula does not ask for a diameter, it asks for a radius. So if it gives me a diameter, I have to figure out what the radius is. And we'll get to that in a second. But first of all, how do we solve this? Well, the only thing that we need to solve for the area of a circle is a radius. Pi is on our calculator. That's the 3.14, blah, 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 right? We're just going to use the pi button. So pi button right there, right on our calculator. That's what pi looks like. Little, I don't know, broken table? Warped table, maybe? How do you describe it? Bent legs? Okay, anyway, so that's pi. And again, pi is basically a ratio of the diameter to the circle. So the diameter, if you just wrap it around your circle, it should wrap around about 3.14 blah, blah, blah times, right? That's all pi is. It's the ratio of the diameter to the circumference of the circle. So, all we need is the radius. So we would just take 2.9 and plug that into our formula. So the area is equal to pi times 2.9 squared. Okay? So in our calculator, we'd literally just say pi times 2.9 squared. Oh, I put an extra 2 in there. Okay, so just like that. Pi times 2.9 squared. And it's probably going to spit me back an answer with a pi in it. Let's see. Nope, it didn't. Okay, good. All right, so 26.4. And our directions, because we always read our directions before we start, right? Wants me to find the area of the circle, use the calculator's value of pi, round your answer to the nearest tenth. So tenth is the first decimal spot, right? It goes tenth, hundredth, thousandth, so on, right? So 4 would be the number we would round to, right? So when we're rounding, we look at the number after it. If it is 5 or greater, we're going to move this number up by 1. If it is less than 5, so like 4 on down, we leave this number alone. So 2 is less than 5, right? So 26.4. So area is equal to 26.4. And since this is area, we label what it is, and it is in meters, right? So it's going to be meters, and area is squared, right? Meters squared. Okay. Then let's figure out what we do if it has a diameter. So diameter is twice the length of a radius. So to find the radius, you literally just take that number, divide it by 2. So radius is going to equal 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So the radius here is just going to be 5 feet long, right? And that makes sense because 5 feet plus 5 feet is 10 feet. So in our formula, it would be area is equal to pi times 5 squared. So in our calculator, we would just write pi 5 squared. Pretty tough, right? Pi 5 squared is 25. Oh, see, it spit back an answer in pi. Now I want to round it to the nearest tenth, right? This is technically a more accurate answer, but we want it as a decimal. So we're going to click our fraction to decimal button. Just right above enter, that button right there. You're going to click that, and it's going to change that from a pi answer to a decimal answer. 78.53, 3 is less than 5, so it stays 5. So 78.5. Area is equal to 78. This is why I usually turn off the light, because it gets all shiny. Area is equal to 78.5 feet squared. And that's my answer. Okay, try another one. So this time we're into the cylinders. This is what a cylinder is, right? Cylinder is just a can. So the formula for the volume of a cylinder is volume is equal to pi r squared. Oh, that looks familiar, right? Where have I seen that before? Oh, hey, look, that's the area of a circle, right? Again, when you think about finding the volume of like a cube or whatever, it's just like length times width times height. Well, length times width is just the area of the square, right? And then the height is the three-dimensional part. So this is literally just the area of the circle times the height, okay? That's all you're doing. That's how you find the volume of a square. You find the area of the circle that forms the base, and then you just times it by the height. So like on this one right here, we'd have volume is equal to, my radius is right here, right? So that'd be 5 inches. So pi times 5 squared, and then multiplied by my height is 3 inches. It's on its side, so that's why it looks a little backwards, but just times 3. Okay? Now, I don't know if my calculator is going to do it right, so I'm going to do this area of the circle in parentheses just to be safe. I don't think it matters. We'll try it. Let's do it here. We'll experiment. So, pi times 5 squared times 3 is 75 or 235.6. Now, I'm going to try it in parentheses. So, pi 5 squared. I didn't put it in parentheses. Parentheses. Pi 5 squared. And then parentheses times 3. And I get the same answer. Okay, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to worry about parentheses. Okay, so 235.61. 1 is less than 5, so it's just going to stay 6. So 235.6. So volume is equal to 235.6 inches. Now this is volume, okay? Volume is a three-dimensional space. So that means there's 3 dimensions. There's a length, a width, and a height, right? That's what determines if you square it or cube it. Now this is 3 dimensions, so we're going to cube the inches, right? Because it's inches going in 3 dimensions. It's going left, right, up, down, and it's going, vertically, off the page. 3-dimensionally. I don't even know how you describe that. Okay, anyway. So, again, formula is just volume equals pi r squared times height. So, area of a circle times height. And if it gives you the diameter, like right here, you have to convert it to a radius first. So, this is a diameter, right? So, radius is going to equal half of that. So, 14 divided by 2 is 7. That's going to be my radius. So you set up your formula. Volume is equal to pi 7 squared times the height, which is 4. Okay, so my calculator, pi 7 squared times 4, like so, is 196 pi, and I want it as decimal, so I click that fraction decimal button. It becomes 615.75. But I want that as a rounded to the nearest tenth, right? So 5 is, more or equal to 5. So I'm going to round up the next number. So 7 is going to become 8. So volume is equal to 615.8. And I'm really zoomed in, but it's kind of because I have to be. Can I zoom out a little bit? Yeah, you guys can still see that. Okay, I'll zoom out a tiny bit, I guess. 615.8. Okay, so that's how you would write that. Okay, now we're going to talk about cones. So, if I talk about cones, it's like an ice cream cone, right? Funny enough, and in class I'll do this, I have a little demonstration where I have a cone and a cylinder that have like the same base here, same circular base, and the same height. So like their measurements are the same, but when you do their volume, like I fill up the cone and see how many of that would fit in the cylinder. Well, funnily enough, 3 of these cones will fit in one cylinder with the same measurements, because the volume of a cone is basically the volume of a cylinder, just 1/3 of it. Okay? Now you could write that a couple ways. You could write it as 1/3 times this, or you could just write it as like pi r squared times h, all divided by 3. It's kind of the same thing. So I've seen the formula written both ways. I kind of prefer this one. It goes more into the next formula a little bit, but up to you how you want to write it. Okay, so let's try and do an example. So again, we just need a radius and a height is all we need, and then it just plugs into the formula. So my radius here is 4 and my height is 8. So volume would equal pi times 4 squared, 1/3 pi times 4 squared times 8, right? Or I could write it as divide by 3, but we're going to write it as 1/3 because that's how I want to enter it. Okay, so in our calculator, 1 fraction button 3 times pi 4 squared times 8. Okay, and I'm going to get 128 pi over 3, but again, I want a decimal, so when I click that decimal button, it turns into 134.04. Okay, so when I write this, I'm going to write it as 134.0 because it shouldn't round up, right? But that 0 shows that there's still actually numbers that come after it. So it's not exactly 134, but by me putting 0.0 there, it shows like, yeah, there are actually numbers there. That's just not enough to, statistically round the 0 up. Okay? So if you have numbers after the 0 like that, that's going to be like the trickiest one. You just put 0. Okay? All right. Let's try another one. So this cone has a diameter. So again, first thing is you would figure out what half of that is. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So radius is going to be 3. So volume equals 1/3 times pi 3 squared times my height, which is 7. So that's what I put in my calculator. So 1 fraction button 3, and then pi 3 squared times 7. And I get 21 pi, and I want that as a decimal, so 65.97. So 7 is bigger than 5, right? So that's going to round 9 up 1. Well, that makes it a 10, right? So it's going to round up 1, and it's going to become 66. And I just realized I have been forgetting to write my measurements down. These are all measurements cubed, right? This was meters cubed, this was inches cubed, and this was yards cubed. Okay. Then spheres. So last one here, guys. Spheres has only one thing that you can pull from it, and that's a radius. It doesn't have a height or anything like that, because technically its height is its diameter, right? So its formula only has one thing we need to plug it into it. And the way spheres work is it's kind of similar to the area of a cone or of a circle, but since it's three-dimensional, it is radius cubed, and then it is 4/3. So you kind of see that thirds come into play from the cone. You notice like all these formulas kind of are similar to each other. It's because they're all circular. Okay, but this would be the formula for the volume of a sphere. Okay, so again, all you really need is to plug in one number for the R and then just put in your calculator. So volume is going to equal 4/3 pi, and then for this one, the radius is 11, right? So 11 cubed, or to the third power. So in my calculator, I put 4 fraction 3, and then pi, and then the radius was 11, and then I need to do it to the third power. So I need to push the exponent button and put 3. And just like that, and then I would push enter, and there's my answer. It's a pretty big sphere. So that sphere is 5,575, and it's 0.27, so we're going to round that to 3.3 miles cubed. Like I said, pretty big sphere. Okay, this one is in a diameter, so again, I got to convert that to radius. So radius is half the diameter, so 18 divided by 2 is 9 inches. So volume is equal to 4/3 times pi times 9 to the third power. Okay, so in my calculator, 4/3 pi, and then it was 9 to the third power. Okay, and I get 972 pi. I want that as a decimal. So 3,053.62, so it'll stay a 6. So volume is equal to 3,053.6, and that is inches cubed. Like so. Okay, if you have any questions, just let me know. We're here to help. You just got to ask us, and I will see you guys out there.